Welcome to the Operation Smooth podcast. The title of this video is WrestleMania doesn't seem to click, isn't clicking in 2026. And I've got my own theories. Right, I've been a wrestling fan my whole life, and I'm old enough to remember the first WrestleMania back in 1985. Way back in the time machine when the first main event was Hulk Hogan and Mr. T against Roddy Piper and Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff. Now, uh, to be honest, this year's WrestleMania doesn't seem to, it just doesn't seem to click. And I know that there's been some injuries to some of the talent. And so obviously that contributes to, maybe the lack of success or maybe the lack of anticipation for WrestleMania. But I remember going back to the first WrestleMania and, many years afterward, growing up and into adulthood, every year it just seemed like WrestleMania was just, the thing to watch. I'm going to go back in the time capsule here. WrestleMania 3. I remember in 1987, for all the old heads watching this podcast, I remember in the days long before streaming, pay-per-view was kind of a relatively new concept in 1987. But I remember being 11 years old and WrestleMania 3, there was nothing like it. WrestleMania 1 was obviously the start of the whole thing. WrestleMania 2 was kind of a dud in a lot of ways. But I remember as soon as WrestleMania 2 was over, Vince McMahon and the WWF, they were really starting to promote WrestleMania 3, literally a week after WrestleMania 2. And so you had the build up to the Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant match. And then you had the build up to Ricky the Dragon Steamboat challenging Macho Man Randy Savage for the Intercontinental title. You had a really good build up for the retirement match of Roddy Piper going up against adorable Adrian Adonis. And then you kind of match that up to what's going on now. You have Cody Rhodes against Randy Orton. It's kind of a dream match, but it's kind of like the build up of the match has not been done properly. You have a you have Rhea Ripley challenging Jade Cargill for the SmackDown title. Again, no real build up, no real anticipation. I'm not sure if they've wrestled before. To be honest, I don't think they have. You've got Liv Morgan against Stephanie Vaquer for basically the Raw Women's title. You do have some matches that have already been set up, but it just doesn't feel like there's any legitimate build up. And that's kind of, I guess, creative's fault. And I think that's why WrestleMania is just not clicking, particularly with the main events. Now, you do have what will be the main event of night two, which is going to be Roman Reigns against CM Punk. You have in those two gentlemen two masters of their craft. So I think they're doing a very good job of making their match a match that's has a lot of high anticipation, and they're building a good storyline. And obviously, there is history between them two. You have the thing with Paul Heyman, who was both of their managers at one time. You also have the backstory of last year's WrestleMania when Roman Reigns, CM Punk, and Seth Rollins had an absolutely fantastic, fantastic triple threat match. And then Paul Heyman getting involved, betraying CM Punk. Then he betrayed Roman Reigns, and then he aligned himself with Seth Rollins. It was kind of predictable, but at the same time, they did a really good job of making it unpredictable. Uh, Great work by everybody involved. But it just seems like, particularly this year, WrestleMania doesn't. It just doesn't hit. It's not hitting like it used to, and it's probably been the last two WrestleManias. Now, WrestleMania 40 with the whole Cody Rhodes. versus Roman Reigns storyline that had basically been built up for 2 years. The culmination of that storyline, what happened in night one in the tag match between Seth Rollins and Cody versus The Rock and Roman, which led to the second night. And then you had the involvement of The Rock, and you had John Cena as a babyface. Solo Sikoa got involved. Then they had the Shield music. You thought Dean Ambrose was going to come out, and he didn't. Seth Rollins comes in, and then the coup de grace, the Undertaker making his return to WrestleMania. So the buildup was there, and then you had a proper culmination of that. And I don't think this year's WrestleMania has that. Maybe they've still got time to get it fixed, but it may be too late. You people are also talking about the ticket prices and so on. While I understand that, I think in wrestling, when you build a great storyline or you build multiple storylines, people are going to pay whatever. Wrestling fans are going to pay whatever they have to pay to see the culmination of those storylines. I mentioned WrestleMania 3, the culmination of the Hulk Andre storyline, the culmination of the Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, Randy Macho Man Savage storyline, a match that is still 40 years later stood the test of time. You have the Roddy Piper Adrian Adonis culmination, even though that match to me personally was not all that great. You fast forward WrestleMania 6. WrestleMania 6, I was 14 years old, and let me tell you, there was nothing else going on. There was, I mean, even the girls in school were talking about it, and for the most part, in those days, girls really didn't talk about wrestling. But back then in 1990, I mean, everybody and their mama was talking about Hulk Hogan as the WWF champion against the Ultimate Warrior, who was the Intercontinental champion. It was going to be title versus title. It was going to be basically the two top good guys in the promotion going head to head at the Skydome in Toronto. And you talk about how the world was divided in 2020 because of COVID, and because the world was divided in 2020 because of the election between Trump and Biden. I'm going to have to disagree. At no point was the world any more divided than when Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior were about to lock horns in WrestleMania 6. I mean, I remember in school, you either rooted for Hulk Hogan or you rooted for the Ultimate Warrior. Now, where I was living at the time, and the school that I was living in, I was going to, you would say it was about 50-50 Hulk Hogan, 50% Ultimate Warrior. Me personally, I was rooting for the Ultimate Warrior. Funny story, back then, if you didn't have you couldn't afford pay-per-view or whatever, for my old heads, if you would scan the channels, the TV would be scrambled. And so it was just this big mess. But every now and then you could see little bits and pieces for about 2 to 3 seconds of what was going on. So I was trying to watch the Hulk Hogan Ultimate Warrior match, and I picked up that Warrior had won because there was a part where Hulk Hogan had his head down and Warrior was doing his little motion. So all you young cats out here, man, you got it real good with Peacock and streaming and Paramount. I'll go even further back. I'll go back to WrestleMania 3 again in 1987. You didn't even have those kind of pay-per-views where you had the scrambled TV or anything like that in 1987. In 1987, let's say they would have the Sunday show before the WrestleMania. Okay, well, we'll see you next week. And I'm serious. You had to wait up until the following Saturday to find out who won the match at WrestleMania or who won the match at, I don't think Survivor Series had started yet, or Royal Rumble. I think SummerSlam started in '88. So back in the mid to late '80s, and if you're an old head, you know what I'm talking about. If you watch Wrestling Challenge, and I forget the name of the other show on weekends, okay, the pay per view is Sunday. You'd have to wait until the following Saturday to find out who won the matches, and that was the same thing in the NWA for my TBS people out there, all my people from Georgia. When you would have the Great American Bash, and you had what was it, the original War Games, which was Dusty Rhodes, Nikita Koloff, the Road Warriors, and Paul Ellering against the Four Horsemen: Ric Flair, Tully Blanchard, Arn Anderson, Lex Luger, and J.J. Dillon. So they had the two rings with the two cages on top. You had to wait until the following week to find out who won. So, all you young cats out there, you really got it good now with all the streaming services. You had it good in the '90s too with pay-per-views and so on. Uh, but again, the storylines just don't seem to be hitting this year. I remember WrestleMania 13 in 1997. You had the culmination of the Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Bret the Hitman Hart story, and what a match they had. And that was when you knew Steve Austin was, he was just about there. And then the following year, the eventual coronation of Stone Cold Steve Austin when he beat Shawn Michaels, and Mike Tyson was the referee. But it just seemed like in WWE, you had at least one storyline, the main event storyline that was clicking, but at the same time, you also had the undercard storylines that were clicking. I think that's what made WrestleMania 17 probably the best WrestleMania of all time. You had Stone Cold against The Rock the second time around at the Astrodome. Obviously, that was the main storyline, but the Undertaker Triple H storyline that was hot too. And so they had a great match to culminate that storyline. You had the Kurt Angle, Chris Benoit storyline, which culminated in WrestleMania 17, also culminated in a great match. And then you had the TLC uh, triple threat match between the Hardy Boys, Edge and Christian, and the Dudley Boys. It was a rematch of the WrestleMania from the previous year, the tables, ladders, and chairs match. That match was fantastic. We all remember the spot where Jeff Hardy's hanging, the belts are in the middle. Jeff Hardy's hanging, and Edge spears him. Great storylines, great matches. You go even further, WrestleMania 19, the final match in the Stone Cold Rock WrestleMania trilogy. But then you had a great storyline between Brock Lesnar and Kurt Angle, culminating in WrestleMania. You had the Booker T Triple H storyline culminated in WrestleMania 19. Not the result a lot of people wanted, but nevertheless, the culmination of that storyline. You had the storyline between Shawn Michaels and Chris Jericho. And if you saw that match was a great match. And you had a match also at WrestleMania 19, the culmination of the Hulk Hogan versus Vince McMahon storyline, which had been, building up for over 20 years. Uh, the Hulk Hogan Vince McMahon match, quite frankly, was a lot better than I think anybody ever thought that they would ever pull off. Uh, let's go back. WrestleMania, I think it was WrestleMania 21. Rey Mysterio winning the world title in the triple threat against Randy Orton and Kurt Angle, a tribute to the memory of Eddie Guerrero. Then you had John Cena against Triple H for the title. I believe that WrestleMania was in Chicago. The Trish Stratus, Mickey James, the culmination of that, and the reaction that Mickey James got after she beat Trish Stratus. Undertaker beating Mark Henry in the casket match, one of the best matches in Mark Henry's career. So you always had the main storyline, and then you had basically at least one secondary or two secondary storylines to go with the main storyline. That's what made WrestleMania successful. Again, for some reason, it just doesn't seem like for this year's WrestleMania, it just seems like none of the storylines clicked. Some of the matches, you've already seen them before on SmackDown and on Raw, so it's like, okay, or we've seen this storyline before and it's playing out, and you just kind of, I don't know, something just doesn't seem to click with WrestleMania this year, and I think at this point it's too late to salvage it. There has been some other WrestleManias that were like that. WrestleMania 9 was not particularly great. WrestleMania 11 was pretty much shadowed by Lawrence Taylor against Bam Bam Bigelow, which a lot of people were upset that Lawrence Taylor was getting that much attention, considering that he's not a wrestler, so that took some of the shine away from uh, the main storylines. You know, I guess. But I don't know. This year's WrestleMania just unfortunately doesn't seem to be clicking. Hopefully, after WrestleMania, Triple H can find the magic again of WrestleMania. WrestleMania, it used to be something special just from everything I stated earlier. So let's see if WWE can find a way to bring back the magic of WrestleMania. Yes, it is a different world out there. It is 2026. The world is way different than what it was in 1985, 86, 87, 1989, the whole Mega Powers implosion, Hulk Hogan against Randy Macho Man Savage. I almost forgot that one. Yes, the world is very different, but at the same time, the world is very much the same as it was back then. So let's see what happens in the future for WrestleMania, and hopefully WWE can recapture that WrestleMania magic. This has been the Operation Smooth podcast, and I am out.